So if you ever want to hear some of this afterwards, after we do it live, then you can listen to it. It'll come out a few weeks later on the podcast. And then at the same time, if you're listening to the podcast and you ever want to see us do this live, Tuesday nights,
chat with us,
8 p.m. Central
us.
on Facebook or YouTube is where we're doing them right now. And then you can come ask us questions and we can hang out and have fun. So Linda is sporting her new shirt. It's a friend of ours band.
That's what's great about living in Franklin is you can meet all kinds of
Nashville area. Yeah,
all kinds of musicians that have bands, and you can
have we talked about this
stuff.
Everybody's a musician.
Everybody's a musician.
It's like the cliche is just so true here. Everyone has a guitar. It's like a prerequisite for living in Nashville. You have to have a 6-string.
That's why you put one on that shelf so that people would, give you.
Where did it go? There it is.
Give you. Respect, right?
Respect. Nashville respect, yeah.
Nashville
so anyway,
respect.
Yeah, that's just the thing here. You need to be a musician, and you need to have a guitar, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Or sing
Most people
or
are Christians, too. It's a pretty Christian community.
Yeah, it is funny because you go to, Walmart. I mean, just a regular place, right? That's in every city in America. Yeah. And they're playing Christian music
on the radio.
Franklin, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Walmart. You're like, oh, all right.
Yeah, our pastors are from Australia, and they moved here, probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
And they were really surprised by that because, somebody can fill me in the comments if I'm off on this, but apparently in Australia, the Christian culture is very different.
Yeah,
where it's
if you're a Christian, you're hardcore. You are not lukewarm in Australia.
Yeah, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've heard about Australia as a general rule. It's not popular. Yeah, whereas especially in the Midwest of the United States, it's, and especially here, it's like a default.
Franklin,
it's assumed that you are. But
right.
Anyway, all right, so tonight what we're going to be talking about is the second wealth secret from this book. And so I mentioned this the other day. It's called 5 Wealth Secrets that 96% of us don't know. And it's by this guy named
Craig Hill.
And I've been reading it, and I was thinking about
Did we talked about this last week, was it? When we talked about Sabbath?
We talked about the whole idea of whether Jews are wealthier than Christians.
Right.
And
we kind of talked about Sabbath, but it was based off of a quote from this book.
Yeah. So I just want to dive in a little bit deeper and go over the second wealth secret in this book, which I think is really powerful. It's been helping me. I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple of weeks. And so praying that it's going to be helpful for you as well. I'm trying to think where I want to go with this. So let me start kind of giving you the premise of this book, this whole 96% thing. So I'm gonna be reading a decent amount here because we kind of brought you in on this book study that you didn't know you were in.
We didn't know.
So you probably haven't been able to do this. But if you want to grab this, I think we're going to do a couple more lives on this. So it's not a super formal book study, and maybe we'll start doing some more. Maybe we'll formalize this and do some.
That's kind of a fun idea.
Book studies.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just might be a better way to approach it. But anyway, so I'm going to be reading a little bit more to you to kind of help you through this. But here's where the whole idea from this book came. So he said, many years ago, I was impressed when I heard Robert Kiyosaki, this is author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I've talked about in the past, cited a very interesting statistic. Kiyosaki stated that people tend to use money very differently depending on their upbringing and financial intelligence. He said, what would be the result a year from now if we were to give 100 people $10,000 today? And then told them to use the money as they wished. He said, according to Robert Kiyosaki, 80 people out of the 100 would have $0 left, which is pretty crazy. 16 would have about $10,300, essentially the amount of interest you would get from just leaving it in a bank. And then he said 4%, let me find it, 4% would have between $20,000 and $1 million, 2 to 100 times more. So the obvious question is, what do the 4% know in practice that the 96% do not? And that's kind of the premise of this book.
Gambling, right? Slot machines?
Slot machines, yeah, there you go. And so Kiyosaki goes on to state that the answer has to do with arithmetic functions ingrained in the financial intelligence of each person. So apparently 80% of the people are very good at subtraction, spending. 16% understand something about addition, and only 4% have learned about multiplication. And so,
Interesting.
anyway, that's kind of the premise of this book as a whole. And what are these 5 secrets that the 96% of people don't know or don't practice, and that 4% of the people do?
So which do you feel like you naturally fall into? Because I feel like I naturally fall into the subtraction one.
I think most people, by default, fall into that category.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what it says. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm asking you personally.
Yeah, I think what I've learned over the years
Athletic.
hopefully gets
What do
me
you feel?
closer to that 4%. I feel like we've had aspects of our life where we're multiplying it, but no, I'm definitely being humbled by some of the things I'm reading in here where it's like, oh man, I could be doing that better. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, what I'm not doing real great and what I think I can be doing better. So with that, so let's dive into this second wealth secret. And the title of the second wealth secret is to focus on vision. And so I'm going to read you a couple sections from here, and
You
then we
might
can kind
wanna
of chat about it a little
Turn
bit.
that off.
What, the dings?
Yes.
I don't know.
Let's turn the dings off because you might get
kind
a
of
bunch
like-
of them.
You think so? Is it like one of those?
It looks like it's
Anyway.
a chat with 3 other people.
Okay,
and
all
they're
right.
gonna
I'll turn that off.
They're gonna be dinging you for a while.
All right. So anyway, this wealth secret is to focus on vision, and so anyway, so he goes on to say, when you ask most people why they cannot accomplish a goal, they will tell you that the prevailing reason is that they don't have the money to do so.
I would love to see in the comments if you're like, yep, that's me, because that is absolutely
I want to start a
me.
business. I want to whatever the thing may be.
I want to have a baby. I want to buy a house. I want to
Yeah.
buy a car.
I don't have the
want
money.
to
That's why I can't do it.
quit my day job and pursue my passion, right?
Yeah, so he goes on to say the focus of these people is on provision rather than on the vision.
Vision.
He said the 4% believe that provision naturally follows the vision. They
that
choose to
interesting?
focus on establishing clear vision with an expectation that provision will naturally follow.
This one, that really got me, just that statement right there of just not that the provision follows the vision. Because how many times, what is that saying? That no, I can't remember it. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And what that means, and I mean, I've heard it. I'm sure there's lots of different ways to use that, but I've heard it in more of a, I really want that, so I'm going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really want new bedding for my for my bed, and where there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to find a way to find this money. I'm going to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And won't you know, it happens because where there's a will, there's a way. And I feel like this is saying that, but it's so much bigger than this.
Well, it's deeper, and it's
Yeah.
and in this book, for anybody who's not curious, it's like this is a biblical approach to all this. This is not a new
Get your
agey
new-
kind
oh.
of like thing by any means. And so we'll explain some more as we kind of dive through this chapter. But and so one of the things he's talking about here as we're going through this chapter is calling, and what this means for our calling, and how many people's lives have been held up where they feel like they've had this thing in their heart that God has put in their heart to do, and yet they let the lack of provision stop them. And this is a tough thing to talk about, because I feel like a lot of people get really angry and upset about this when they're in a situation where it feels like there's no provision and it feels like there's no way to do this. How can you tell me that I should be moving forward in this? And the thing that I'm challenged by with this, because I've been so guilty of this in so many ways.
Me too.
And even lately, I feel like there's a lot of areas where I have made excuses because it seems like there's not provision there to do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And if you look at the Bible, you're filled with stories of people who didn't have provision, but had the vision that God was calling them to do, and then God came through in a miraculous way to provide that.
Right.
And we'll get to some of those in a minute. But
Just a
Go
quick recap. This book is, tell us this book again.
5 Wealth Secrets, 96% of us don't know, by Craig Hill. We have a link in the description if you want to pull it up on Amazon. Anyway, he goes on to talk a little bit about calling, and this is a little bit of a tangent to kind of the main point of this chapter, but he says, my experience has been that God usually places within a person desires and abilities to facilitate the purpose and calling from God for that purpose or person's life. So the question to you would be the following. This is if you're struggling with figuring out, well, what is that thing? What do you lie awake at night thinking and dreaming about? What do you love to do? What are you really good at? And if you could do anything you like, what would it be? And a question I would add to this, because I'm often talking to people about calling a lot. It seems like it comes up a whole lot. The question I often ask is like, if you can't answer any of those and you don't know what that answer is, like ask your spouse or ask a really close friend what they think you're really interested in, what they think you're passionate about, because that often will shine a light on things that you might not be able to see yourself.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, and ask a good friend. Don't ask someone who is going to be superficial and tell you, not a great answer. Really. Yeah. I mean, the people that you are talking to about this it's really important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah. So he goes on to say that the 96% thinkers will always pursue money instead of pursuing vision. I have found that just the opposite is true. If you pursue your God-given vision, money will naturally follow. It's like, man, and how many people spend their days, it's like, I just got to make money, just to pay the bills, just to feed my family. And it's true, but I think I think it's just really challenging.
Well, and he goes on, I don't know if you were going to read this part or not, but he goes on to say that when he talks to people on an airplane, he'll sit down, person next to him on the airplane, and he will start asking them, what do you do?
Read this section if you want.
Why? And, they're saying what their job is.
Let me just read it.
Okay.
Yeah, so he goes through this series of conversations with random people he meets, just to kind of illustrate this point and to determine whether or not somebody knows kind of why they're doing what they're doing. He says, what do you do for a living? I work for such and such company, or I sell a product, or work in this factory. And then he says, well, do you like that kind of work? Most people say, well, no, not really. He said, how many hours a week do you work, and for how many years have you been doing this? Oh, about 40, 50 hours a week, and I've been doing it for 20 years. So you've been doing something you really don't like for 50 hours a week for 20 years. Why are you continuing to do the work? Well, for the money. I have to work. Well, why do you need the money? This is probably a very frustrating conversation.
Can you imagine sitting next to this guy on an airplane and you're like, I just want to listen to my music.
Yeah, dude, pack up. So at this point, seatmates usually look a little puzzled by the question, as if to say, well, duh, what a stupid question. Why would I need the money? But they politely say, I need money to pay my bills, for my house, my car, my food, my clothes. So why do you need a house, food, car, or clothes? By now they normally look a little miffed and say, obviously without a house, food, clothes, I will die. And then sometimes I ask one final question to get to the bottom and find the vision. So why do you need to live? Boom, mic drop. And he said, at this question, most people just look at me with a blank stare. This question is requesting articulation of the purpose for which God has placed that person on the planet. At least 96% of the people have never thought that through and cannot give me a clear, articulate purpose for their existence and vision for their life.
I mean, I just read this today, and I was kind of like, why am I alive? Why do I need to live? I mean, that's a really deep question, and I feel like I have a pretty good sense of purpose already. I mean, I have 3 children. I have a husband who I love. Obviously we run SeedTime, and this is a beautiful business, but I was like, let's get deeper. Like, what can I go that's even deeper than that?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a really deep and intimate question.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'm still searching for what's deeper.
Yeah. For anybody just hopping on now, looks like a bunch of you just hopped on. We're going over the second wealth secret from this book, 5 Wealth Secrets. Somebody was asking if it's a biblically based book. It absolutely is. All right, so let me read this other thing to you. I'm just going to keep asking these, dropping these really challenging things because there's a lot of them in the book that just really made me guilty of that or whatever. Anyway, he says, for the 96%, money is their master, and they do what they do for money. Since money is their master, God becomes a servant to get the 96% more money.
That right there is like, let's just stop on that.
Yeah.
Since money is their master, God becomes the servant to this majority so
Yeah.
that they can have more money.
For the 4%, money is their servant, and they do what they do to fulfill a calling that God has given them. Since God is the master, money becomes their servant to fulfill God's purpose and calling on their lives.
That is so good. And like, isn't that, I feel like we've touched on this, but I like
Yeah.
the way he's saying it, where money becomes your servant so that God can become your master. Whereas when you're letting money rule your life and rule your decisions, then God becomes your servant.
Yeah.
That is really challenging. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's why
I
I was
read
saying,
that
that's
and
why I
was
wanted
like,
to talk
I'm
about
so
this.
sorry, God. I'm so sorry for every time I've made you my servant.
That's why I want to talk, because we have the mission behind our site and everything we do and all of this has been to help you, and us, on this journey together.
Right.
Be solid with our finances so that we can fulfill God's call in our life and whatever that is. But even still, even having that in the mission of what we're doing, I'm still just getting really, just convicted and just God's just showing me deeper levels through this book. So I'm really excited. And that's why I want to go over all this with you guys tonight. All right, I'm going to keep them coming. There's a couple more things I want to talk about.
Just bought the book. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Richard.
Let's see. Coming to the next thing. Okay. All right, so...
Oh, somebody's asking, does the book help you answer why are you alive question?
I think a little bit we were talking about that. We've actually done a few videos about calling, which, I think ties right up into that. But, all right, so this chapter, well, really most of the book that I've read so far is done in a story format. And so I'm going to read this, and it might not make sense, but he kind of does a story of, I don't even know, it's like a father and a son kind of teaching, and that's how these principles are kind of tied up in here. Anyway, so it says, Papa turned to Isaac and Rachel and said, Isaac, lack of money is never the hindrance to accomplishment. It is either lack of vision or lack of knowledge, but it seems that most people believe that lack of money is their primary obstacle. So...
I think that's really true.
Yeah, there's another thing here. Yeah. So I got a couple questions I want to ask you that after all this, but I'm trying to figure out what question this is referring to. Okay, so it's most of the 96% thinkers lack wisdom and vision to administrate larger sums of money. On the other hand, we've heard stories of, so this is referring to, let me come back real quick. We've heard many stories of those who have won multi-million-dollar lottery jackpots only to find themselves destitute and without financial resource in just a few short years. I read a statistic that said that it's something like 30% of big lottery winners end up bankrupt, which is insane, absolutely insane.
Shouldn't be.
Anyway, so he goes on to say, so why is this so? I believe it's because most of the 96% thinkers lack the wisdom and vision to administrate larger sums of money. On the other hand, we've heard stories of wealthy 4% thinkers who have been stripped of large fortunes only to regain their wealth again in a few short years. Why? I believe this is probably because of the vision within the 4% thinker that generates wealth again in a very short period of time. So, in the long term, a person with a strong, clear vision, a 4% thinker, and no money will be much better off financially than a person with lots of money and no clear vision, a 96% thinker.
Do you remember that book, The Miracle Morning?
Yeah.
Wasn't that
Probably
guy?
back there somewhere.
Didn't he do that?
Do what?
Where it was he rose to the top and then he fell really, he got in a car crash. And
He did. He almost died.
He almost died. They thought he was going to be paralyzed, and he's not paralyzed. And it was he talked about that. He was his vision.
Yep.
He kept this picture in his mind of what his life would be like, and just kept rising to the top over and over and over again, despite huge obstacles.
Yeah, that's another great book, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Not a Christian book, really enjoyed it. Helped me a lot. All right, so this is another weighty thing that I want to read because I think this is really powerful. So it says, why do you think it is that in our day so many people focus on money or provision? Has it always been that way? And
yeah, this one hit me too.
no, son, in past times, even the general population focused more on vision than on money or provision. However, over the past 50 or 60 years, values here in our modern society have really changed. In past times, here in the United States, even the vast majority of the 96% valued purpose, destiny, and calling above money. At that time, the concept that I have been placed here by God to fulfill a destiny or purpose greater than myself, and that this purpose will require self-sacrifice for the benefit of others, was commonly embraced. While today this type of lifestyle is reserved for those very few special people like Mother Teresa, in past times this lifestyle of individual sacrifice and living for a purpose much greater than self was common to many people in society.
Right. And I mean, you think about the people who basically came to America and the
Immigrated?
settlers. Yeah.
Yeah. Or okay.
No, I'm talking about like the settlers and the people who established the
Oh
country.
yeah.
Like that was not easy. That was not fun. It
Yeah.
was like
We watched a
hardship.
couple of those documentaries. And it's
Hardship
like,
the
wow,
entire time.
that was a challenge.
Right. Hardship the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all, I want to set my kids up for better. I want to set my kids up for better. And I feel like there's some of that now, but I see less of us saying, well, I want to leave a huge inheritance for my kids, and more of, why would I leave them inheritance? I'll just give them a good life now.
Yeah.
And let them figure it out later, right?
And I think, probably what's the greatest generation? Somebody can, in the comments, throw the years, but that was during the World War II era, right? Somebody want to confirm that for me? But that is, the last generation of Americans, at least, that, from my vantage point, limited vantage point, but from what I can tell, like really embraced this and did that and laid down their lives for things bigger than themselves.
Yeah, there you go. War.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge one right there.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously, just to clarify, like, there's definitely people still living like this, right?
Yeah, but not as many as we need.
Not as many as we need, right?
And especially believers. Like, we need believers fulfilling and chasing God's vision for their life rather than trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get 1 million followers or make themselves rich or whatever. Like, there needs to be a purpose behind it. Let that other stuff follow it if that's going to, and God wants to do that, great. But, Matthew 6:33, seeks first the kingdom and his righteousness, and then these things will be added unto you. And that is the proper kind of sequence of things, you know. People are still asking about the book. There's a link in the description should be on YouTube and Facebook, and the Kindle version is cheaper.
It was in the email today, too.
It's in the email. The paperback's kind of pricey. You might be able to find it used, but the Kindle book's like $10, I think. All right. For many today, character has been replaced by convenience. The former value of self-sacrifice has largely been exchanged for the value of self-gratification. Lack of a strong sense of purpose and destiny produces a self-focus and a certain feeling of emptiness and lack of fulfillment in life. Many people today live for diversion and entertainment to fill up an empty, meaningless life. Boom. All right, here's the positive side of that. Let's try to line up some positivity here. Self-focused people then see money as a primary means to gratify and entertain self, to help comfort and ease the emotional pain of the... Okay, I thought this was getting positive. We're not quite there yet.
Okay, no, we're not. Skip ahead.
Okay. Here's the positive part. People living for a purpose beyond self see money simply as a tool to accomplish a vision in fulfillment of a divine destiny or calling. People living for a purpose beyond self see money simply as a tool to accomplish a vision in fulfillment of a divine destiny or calling.
Mm-hmm. People are loving this book, and I'm really glad. This is only the second chapter, and we haven't even read the whole thing to you. But this is a lot of really good stuff. Do you want to read that? What does that thing say?
This is just like kind of the summary of this
Okay, let's do the summary, because for anybody who's just joining us. There's a couple questions
I want to ask. Yeah. So, the 2-sentence summary here is to focus on vision and not provision. What has God dropped into your heart? What is the thing he's been calling you to do? and focus on that. And I've had years where I've been paralyzed by this, where I've known that God was calling me to do something, and I've made excuses because it seemed like there wasn't enough provision there. On the other hand, we've had moments where we've succeeded in this area a little bit, where we have stepped out in bold, scary faith to do things that didn't make sense in the natural, and the provision did not seem like it was there. But as we stepped out, we saw God come through. And we've had that happen enough that I can confidently say that he's going to do it. He's going to do it. He's done it in our lives so many times. And I don't know if he talks about this in this chapter, or maybe somewhere else. He was talking about, the loaves and fishes. The loaves and fishes miracle. So I should probably pull up the passage. I don't have it in front of me.
I can look it up real quick.
So Jesus asked the disciples, how did it go? Are you going to pull it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jesus basically, or the disciples come to Jesus and say, we got to feed all these people. There's not a market anywhere near. We don't have enough money. And they're focused on their lack of provision, and they don't know what to do. And then Andrew comes up and says, well, we got this little boy who's got a few loaves and a few fishes. And anyway, he doesn't see... He's not focused on what's not there. He's looking at what is there. It's not much. In the natural, it's not something that's going to make it work. But God is taking, or in this situation, takes the little bit that's there, multiplies it, and makes it everything that it needs to be. And that is a principle that I feel like we've seen multiple times in our life happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where I have this meager little thing, and I'm like, God, there is no way this meager little thing is ever going to be the thing that it needs to be right now. And God says, yes, in your own strength, it's not going to be. And if you're focusing on everything that's not there, it's not going to happen. But if you focus on what is there, and you focus on me and my ability to multiply it, that's where the power is.
Yeah. And I saw somebody made a comment earlier. I don't see it on here right now, but they said if you are broke, then a lack of finances is a really big deal. Which I hear you. I understand what you're saying. I think that is true sometimes, but we're not talking about just like stuff you want to do, like I just want to do this type of thing. We're talking about what you feel like the Lord is calling you to, and having like a very clear vision for what God has for your life, right?
Yeah, but this goes beyond that. This goes to, we've had our church, we've been doing online church like all of you guys have, and we've been every week, they've been sharing testimonies of giving and generosity, which a lot of them have been mind-blowing, because a lot of people, I'm sure, people, everybody, everywhere, I think it's like 25% of people have lost their jobs. But our church has a really high percentage of them because we have a lot of musicians, and because it's Nashville. And so a lot of these touring musicians or whatever, producers, or all these people, are just, a lot of them are out of work. And I've been hearing so many testimonies of situations like this, and the same type of thing, where God was calling them to give in whatever, to this area or to this person or to whatever the thing may be, where it's like, this doesn't make any sense in the natural. But they had that vision, they had that clarity in mind of what they were supposed to do and what God was leading them to do, even though it was really scary. And the provision didn't seem like it was there to make that work and pay the bills and whatever else. But God came through to supply as they did that in faith. And so I think it extends beyond just your life's calling, but I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the testimony from this last weekend, we haven't asked her if we can share this, but I'm just going to share it anyway. So it was a single woman who was a real estate agent, lost 100% of her income, and she had Airbnbs. She had like rental properties. So she's like, that'll be my second stream of income. She thought this was a great idea. Obviously, coronavirus happened, and both of those streams of income just completely dried up. And so she is trying to figure out what to do. She looks in her bank account. She literally has like $3 and some change in her bank account. And she's like, I have to do something to move forward. So she said, I'm not going to
be paralyzed by fear.
Yeah, I'm not going to be paralyzed by fear. I'm going to trust God with this. So she gave $3. So she's got,
80 cents.
Something, or less maybe. So this happens, I think the very next day, she gets in a car accident that totals her car. And
Somebody broke into her
she
house.
comes home and someone had broken into her house and had stolen things from her. So she's like, I just gave away my last $3. And this happens. Like, that is devastating. Like, I cannot imagine feeling like her. And she's a single girl. It's like, it's just her trying to figure all this out, you know? And people had heard what happened and just started sending her money.
Yeah, she didn't tell anyone.
She didn't even tell anyone. Yeah. Like, unless it was like hey, can you come help me? Because I feel like the lock is it's not safe for me to stay in my house right now, you know? People just started sending her all this money. And then based off of the insurance that was worked out with her homeowner's insurance and her car insurance, she's in a better position. Then the market sort of just opened up recently.
Real estate wise, yeah.
Yeah, here in Franklin. And all of the properties that she had listed originally back in, I guess, early February, March, sold. And it was just like, boom, boom, boom. Everything just works itself out. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. And that is a perfect example of someone who is broke, has no money, and God coming through for them. I don't know. I just thought that was really exciting and encouraging. And yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let me finish this summary here. So focus on vision, not on provision. Discover your purpose and calling from God. Choose your career or profession according to calling and not according to money. Then pursue your calling and vision with all your heart and expect provision to naturally follow. Mm-hmm. So, a couple questions. These are kind of homework. You know, you don't have to do this in the chat box, although you're welcome to. But this is something that I want to do. So describe the clearest statement of vision for your life as you understand it at this point. If your vision is not yet clear, you might ask others to pray for you to get a clear vision. I think that's a really good exercise. Mm-hmm. What was the other question I wanted to ask here?
I don't know.
Yeah, explain what it would look like in your life if you were to focus on vision rather than provision. And, you know, I don't think this is a black and white thing. I think most of us have a sense of, even if it's a really small sense, of the sense that God is using us in our job, in our business, in our whatever, in our parenting, whatever the thing may be. I think we can all sense that a little bit, but I think that's the thing is I want to lean further and further and further into that. And I also want to add, I don't think this is about, I think it's easy to just turn this into this big weighty thing of, well, if I'm really going to
quit your job and start pursuing your passion.
Yeah, like I need to be a preacher who reaches 100 million people a year in order for me to really be a big deal. I don't think it's like that at all. I think there are plenty of people who are called to something that doesn't seem significant in the world's eyes,
right?
But actually is absolutely life-changing and incredibly important. You know, there's
like taking cooking classes or something like that.
Yeah,
simple.
It's just about getting lined up with what God has wired you to do and chasing that. Like there are so many really weighty and special things that the Lord has for us that. The world's way of viewing things and evaluating things is just all off. It's just completely wrong. And one of the best things that we can do is just get our definition of success to not be tied to how the world determines it. And that is really hard to do in this world that we live in. But to the degree that we can view success and failure in life the way that God sees it, I don't know. I think when we get to heaven, it's going to be a really fun celebration surprise. I think people who are like Evelyn, who are taking care of their 89, 92-year-old parents with dementia, you know, because that's what they're called in this season. I think there's going to be a really sweet something up in heaven.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and hopefully here on earth too.
Yeah.
Kind of what you said though kind of sparked an idea for me is there are people who are maybe in a job that they don't like.
Been there.
But
I get it.
But the idea of the vision, letting the vision take over. So maybe that looks like you are supposed to act a certain way in front of your coworkers and your boss.
Yep.
And that is your vision.
Yep.
And you need to get really clear on that and run after that instead of running after, well, am I going to get a raise?
Yeah. Man, well, yeah, let me add to this. So another really, really hard thing, I'll just tell you what the Lord did for me. So I had about 5 years of being in a job, actually a couple different positions, the same company, jobs that I really did not like, that I was not good at, that I was not gifted for, which is incredibly humbling, and incredibly humbling when you're in a position that you're not good at it. Like, because I'm a really hard worker, but I just was not wired and gifted for these jobs.
The jobs that you
and which is really, really frustrating when you're working really hard and you're just not good at it. And so that was a really challenging 5-year period of my life where I felt like I was doing work that I didn't like, that I wasn't fulfilled by, and that I wasn't good at. And like all this combination of all these things was really, really challenging me. And all this time I had this vision for starting a business, and I wanted to start a business, but I didn't know how to get started and all this. But what the Lord led me through for that 5-year period was I felt like what he wanted to do in my heart was see if I would work heartily as unto him and not unto man, and see if I would honor my boss, and see if I would go into work and work hard even when I wasn't getting the credit, even when I was getting passed over for promotions, even when whatever, office politics, all this stuff. He wanted to check my attitude, and it was a really hard season. But I have learned, like in hindsight, looking at everything I learned from that season, that phase, it's just been so incredibly important. There were lessons that I needed to learn in that season that I don't know if I could have learned any other way. So if that's the position you're in, like it's not fun at all, but use it, take advantage of it. Like don't waste that time away. Like honor the Lord in that situation that you're in.
Yeah. I've been really learning a lot from our pastors recently, in the last couple of years, really, because they're the Australian pastors. And they've really taught me a lot about not everything in life is fun, and not everything in life is going to be just sunshine and lollipops. And I think as a Christian, the kind of environment I grew up in was, but we're overcomers. And when I was told that I was an overcomer, that meant that nothing bad should happen to me.
But what it actually means is if you have to overcome something, that means there's a big challenge there.
There's a big challenge there.
Yeah.
And I've really been, it's something that I've really needed to hear a lot because I've had that thing ingrained in me of like, well, this isn't supposed to happen because God is for me, who can be against me? And it's like, that is still true. But the Bible is also very clear about there being trials and tribulations in life.
Yeah. And be of good cheer. Jesus has overcome.
Because he has overcome the world. And
so I'm going to add something to that whenever you're ready.
It's just a really hard thing. Like I've been in a job that I didn't like either. And I've been in a job where I'm like, there was grace for me to do this job for a while and it's not there anymore. And I've been in a job where the grace was there, it was then removed, and then I still had to stay for several years after that.
Yeah.
Or in what felt like the grace was gone. And that doesn't mean that there's not something still there for you to do. And that doesn't mean that you can't still find vision in that. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Am I right in saying this?
Absolutely. But it's hard.
Really
like
hard
we're not at all saying that it's easy. But what I'm saying is if you're in that position, that challenge, like, and this is the same thing with the whole situation that we're in right now with this pandemic. It's like this is a bad situation, but how can we get the most out of it? How can we suck the good out of this thing? And that's the thing. Is how can we take the negative situation that we're in and learn the lessons that we can to grow us and mature us as Christians? That's the question I'm always asking. Like, how can we do that? And it's not easy. But to what you were talking about earlier with the challenges in life and all this, I've been learning more and more about story. I've been reading more books about basically how to tell a good story. And as I'm learning about what makes a good story, and then watching movies or reading, fiction books and just kind of seeing there's a very predictable arc of what a story looks like. And the reality is any good story that you listen to, the breakthrough time and the good time is a very small percentage of the book or the very small percentage of the movie. Yeah. Most of the movie that you're watching is the person is in the challenge trying to overcome the challenge. Like once they arrive and the challenge is over, then the movie pretty much ends because it's boring. You know what I mean? And at the same time, at the beginning of the movie, if it's too long before they get to the challenging thing, whatever that challenge is, then it's too slow of a movie and it's too boring. And it's like, all right, we're not going to watch it. So my point is that I've just always thought as a believer, and I don't have any Bible to back this up. This is like just straight theory, complete guesswork. But as a believer, I've just always thought, man, well, as a believer, most of my life should always be really positive without challenge. Maybe 5% of the time I have challenge. But when I read a good story in which I think what God is doing in our lives is writing a good story that seems to be the journey that he takes most of us on. And if, like I said, when you look at a story, a good percentage of it, 70, 80%, is actually overcoming the challenge and not sitting in this perfect, idyllic breakthrough space, So I'm not at all saying like build a theology off of that. I'm just saying it's an observation that I've had that I think is just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, my 2 cents, no idea if it means anything, but it's helped me a little bit just being a little more comfortable with, all right, we're going to have challenges in life. They're going to keep coming. This is just part of life.
Right.
I'm going to be excited when we have these moments of like idyllic
it's
peace
so good,
and everything's
right?
perfect. But the reality is, it does say we're going from glory to glory, but it doesn't say what's in between those two glories or all those different glories.
Melissa Joe says, no matter what season that you're in right now, you are in training for what's next. Pass the lesson and on to the next.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
true, because you're not done. Like, it's not done. But it's like endurance training. Like if you run a mile, the next day you can run 2.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or the next,
I would
whatever.
say next day.
Next week, next
you
month.
Could.
Linda
loves running.
I am the best runner you've ever seen in your life. Why don't you tell them about our
Couch to 5K we did when we first got married?
I was like, I hate this. This is awful. Meanwhile,
that was on the day we ran like a quarter mile.
Meanwhile, I have a friend who trained for a half marathon, and she's running her half marathon, and her brother goes, hey, I'm doing the full marathon. Why don't you keep coming with me? And she decides to run the full marathon with him and didn't die. She did great. She's just just keeps running.
I don't understand that. I'm not a runner either, but
there's not much I dislike more than running. Okay, that's not true. There's a lot I dislike more, but you get the idea.
Anyway. All right.
If you see me running down the street, call the police.
Nailed it.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway.
I'm trying to think. Were there any questions?
I don't know if there were any questions, but
well, thank you everybody coming and hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you got some good stuff out of it. What we're going to do, just giving you a little bit of update. We have a lot going on right now. Just quick announcements. So if you're here hanging out with us, I am negotiating a book deal right now with my book publisher that I hope we get to work with. So we're in negotiation right now. So I hope we get to tell you something soon about that because I'm really excited. And then the other thing we're doing is our real money budgeting course, which we launched last year, is now a year old, and we are rolling out a 2.0 version, updated with a whole bunch of new stuff. And so we are going to be celebrating that next week and doing some special next couple weeks. Starting next week and doing some fun things with that. We're going to do a couple webinars where we go in detail on some more training on some stuff.
Yeah, but you guys, this course, it's really exciting for us because we're getting lots and lots of really powerful testimonials of how this is just changing people's lives.
Yeah, so I just got to tell you real quick. So this guy...
We're super excited about it.
This guy emailed me this is probably 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to share this video because it's absolutely amazing.
It's so good.
So he said, yeah, I don't really do this very often, but I just wanted to reach out and tell you a little bit what's happened since we started doing your course 5 months ago. He said, he said, I've struggled with budgeting and personal finance for 17 years. Struggled with budgeting, managing money for 17 years. He said, in the last 4 or 5 months, we have now saved $14,000. He said, if I looked at the month before I started your course, we were upside down. We were spending $500 more than we earned. Now we are earning $1,200 more than we're spending. And he just went on, and like my jaw dropped. Like I'm like just blowing my mind. So anyways, I'm really excited, and we're going to be sharing more of.
Well, and that's just a little piece of it.
Yeah,
that's
there's a
just
lot more
one
to
piece
it,
of it.
but we've had just a lot
Just
of
so
really cool
exciting.
success stories that we're going to be sharing. Just over the week to come. We're going to be sending out a few more emails with information about that.
Well,
but we're
and
going to
this
do
is part of the thing of like the vision that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like find your vision, make it happen.
Yeah. So we're going to do a couple webinars. And so probably these next couple weeks, I think instead of doing these live, we're going to probably do webinars where we're training on something. I have 2 different ideas of kind of more in-depth training that I think we can do that might be cool.
So how can we get people to sign up for that?
We'll send out links.
Where?
In the email. So
In the
if you're not
email.
on our email list, get on our email
Get on
list.
the email
I assume
list.
most of you are, but if you're not, go to seedtime.com. Any of the email forms, just get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Drop your email so we can email you. And I think that's it.
Is there anything else? We're busy right now. Is there anything else you wanted to?
No.
No.
All right.
Other than we have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
They're the busy.
Yep.
They keep us busy. We're the best. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We will chat soon. Be blessed. Be blessing.
Yep.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.